7:30, and I would like to open the November 5th, 2020 school committee meeting. This meeting is being held virtually through Zoom. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation / Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chair of the raised hands, and the chair will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request that the participant return their microphone back to mute. All right. With that, I'd like to start the meeting with the consent agenda, the minutes from October 29th, 2020, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from October 29th, 2020, and oath to bills and payroll.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Brad?
Brad Austin, yes.
Justin?
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Matt?
Matt Hunt, yes.
And Mike Fontanella votes yes as well. Timberland Rossius is not with us at the moment. She is at senior night for the girls soccer team, and she'll try to get in here a little later if she has time. All right. All right, we are at the section of the meeting. We have at least two sections on the agenda for input from interested citizens. This is the first one. We'll have another one closer to the end of the meeting. If there's anything that comes up during the meeting that we think the public may be interested in, we will have another opportunity for public input. So at this point, if anyone has any public input they'd like to bring forward to the school committee, please use the raise your hand function, and Dorothy Malone, our meeting moderator, will get you in front of us.
I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, let's give it a couple more seconds in case people are fumbling with the technology, but it does not appear that is the case. All right. At this point, we'll go into recognition. Steve Mark, you said you had someone you wanted to talk about?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly, I'd like to recognize the Mighty Oak Fund. They dropped off a generous $2,000 check donation to the schools last week. No specific purpose, so we will gather with the administrative team and discuss with to best use these funds. I just wanted to recognize Bobby Chenrak and the Mighty Oak Fund for that contribution. Thank you.
Yep, Mighty Oak Fund. It's an annual thing they do, and they help the schools out. They also help youth sports, and they have other charitable efforts that they're involved in. Bobby does a good job with that. He's cast a pretty wide net, but we're happy that we're underneath that net, and appreciate the donation that he made on behalf of that fund. So thank you, Bobby. All right, continuing with Steve. You got a financial update for us, Steve?
Yes, thank you. There's a report in your packet. These are year-to-date appropriated expenditures through the month of October. No surprises here. We're on budget, on track. No big surprises at this point in time. We're dealing with the COVID expenses through some federal funds and things like that. So again, no real surprises here. I'd be glad to answer questions if anybody has a question.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on that, Brad?
Yeah, Steve, can you just give us an update? Again, I'm not certain how all this works on where we are about state appropriations looking forward. Are we still waiting month to month from the state budget?
The budget, the state has not passed a full fiscal budget for the year. They are still in a month-to-month process. The latest Chapter 70 funds report that's out there does not show a decline at this point for the town of Littleton. So at this point in time, I think we're in a holding pattern as far as Chapter 70 funds. Their town accountant would be better off to, she's a better source for where we're at with local funds and local tax funds as far as what the town budget may do. So, but as far as the school department, we're still on track to the best of my knowledge for Chapter 70 funds. Yeah.
Great. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a joint meeting with the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen to kind of kick off the budget process, or really just kind of setting the expectations in the calendar. But at that point, Cheryl Hickstella indicated that the legislature was trying to finish the budget and finalize it for the rest of the fiscal year. That hasn't been completed yet, but they were extensively trying for that. So their goal is to not continue to use the month-by-month budgeting process. It is to get a budget in place. She also indicated that everything she's heard so far is that local aid and Chapter 70 should hold based on the projections that we had made back when we did the budget. So right now, I don't know if I guess I would call it good news. So we're going to kind of have to keep our fingers crossed, but we haven't had any indication that we should be more pessimistic than we were when we adjusted the budget back in the spring. Those numbers look like they might hold.
Yeah, we're in contact with the Department of Education finance team, and they are telling us right now that they don't expect any decreases to Chapter 70 funding at this point in time. But again, that's still preliminary, still waiting on the governor and the legislature to finalize that. There's just no rumors of it at the Department of Education level that we've been made aware of.
I'll take the absence of bad news as good news. So thank you.
Exactly. It's a good way to look at it. All right. Anything else on the budget? No. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is brief talk about another HVAC study that we had done. If we can just bring those slides up. So as part of the agreement with the LEA, when we were negotiating the MOA, we agreed that we would bring in a company to take a look at the actual performance of our systems and measure them and make sure that they were meeting the requirements. Just to recap, this is the third effort that we've had over the past few months in this regard. So prior to school starting, ENE Systems, who's been our longtime HVAC contractor, went through all 4 schools, servicing all the rooftop and classroom HVAC units. They cleaned them, replaced and upgraded filters, and ensured that all the units were in full working condition. We talked to them, and in talking to them, what they told us was that Littleton's HVAC systems in all our buildings are in the top 10% of all the school districts that ENE Systems service. So that was good when we heard that. We did feel, though, that maybe we needed to take a deeper look. So if we just go to the next slide, the next effort was to hire BLW Engineering. We did that in September to determine if our HVAC systems, as they were designed, met industry standards. According to Ken Beck, the principal of BLW Engineering, that based on all applicable guidelines, ASHRAE, State of Massachusetts, the MTA, the Littleton schools were safe to occupy based on the design. Now, the next effort we did, if you go to the next slide, we hired a firm. As I said, as part of the MOA with the LEA, we hired NETB Associates to measure the current actual performance levels of all our rooftop and classroom HVAC units. BLW Engineering did their analysis based on the the plans, the building plans and the systems. They didn't actually go through with any instruments measuring them. They just said based on the design of the systems and the capacity as it's, they have that in theory they should be working and provide the necessary ventilation. But NETB actually went in with instruments, went into each classroom, measured the space, ran the units, closed the windows, ran the units, measured the output of air and things like that. And coming through that effort, they in their report that they gave to us and that we have given to the LEA as part of the agreement and that we've included in the packet tonight for anybody who wants to look up and reference it. But, NETB's conclusion was that all the HVAC units that they tested meet or exceed the minimum ventilation rates as defined in ASHRAE, which is the industry standard, their guidelines. It's a technical document with a lot of numbers in it. It breaks down each room and unit, and anybody that wants to look at it is welcome to do that. I don't think that it's all that meaningful for us to break it down. I don't think we're really qualified to break it down because it is a technical document. We did have a meeting with them after they were done with it, and we had Ken Beck come in and participate in that meeting. And again, what they told us was that we are in really good shape. Our units are great. They're definitely doing what they need to do, and that we should feel confident that we're in a good space relative to the current level of our equipment, and should have no concerns about that. So again, that we gave that the actual report to the LEA this week. We've included it in the packet, so if anybody else wants to look at it and refer to it, they're welcome to do that. It'll be online. At this point, if anybody has any questions from the school committee, let me know. I'm not sure I can answer them, but I'll try. Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Yeah. So thanks for that. I wasn't able to figure out a lot of that report and didn't have a lot of time to look at it. I apologize for that. But my question is, my understanding is that the second report, the BLW engineering, was measuring the kind of design capacity and said we were well above the threshold they were using as the absolute gold standard was the 32 cubic feet per minute, maybe per person. I've forgotten the actual standard. And then this next one, the NETB, which was looking at the actual, was looking at how it was actually functioning. I'm wondering how the actual, if they were also using the cubic feet per minute measurement, and if so, if we got what we wanted to see out of it.
So the way I understand it is the issue with cubic feet per minute is that is a per person measurement. Right. So it fluctuates. If you're going to have 15 people in the room or 30 people in the room, you're going to get a different number. So they used 15 people as an assumption, but that's an assumption. So if we put 20 people in the room, the number you see on the report isn't going to be what you're getting effectively. But conversely, if you only put 7 people in the room, you're going to get a better performance in terms of the amount of fresh air that each person has available to them while they're in the room. But what they clearly indicated was that with that assumption of 15 people, we're well above the industry standard, which I believe is 10 CFM. The standard. Another standard is the MTA put out a standard, the Mass Teachers Association, of 20 CFM. And then one of the ones that Ken Beck used in his report was Brookline, Massachusetts, had a 32. Like I think you said it, Brad. That's the gold standard. That's clearly significantly higher than the industry standard. But the thing to keep in mind is that's based on occupancy, so it's a moving target. Right. So some of the rooms, I took a look at the report, some of the rooms don't reach 32 CFM, but it's because they're smaller and they don't have the square footage. So that would be a room where we wouldn't have 15 people in there, but there's no way to, for the purposes of this analysis, they got to stick with one number and work through it. But generally speaking, they said that all the systems did pass and met the industry standard. It's just if you want to go higher, you have to think about you might need to, in a particular room, have fewer people in there at a given time.
Well, that's really helpful, and thank you. I remember, if I recall correctly, the reason for the 32 was just, hey, that's what that other district was doing. There was no real science behind that answer. And if the MTA is saying 20, if that's the state teachers union, then that seems to be an acceptable threshold as well. Can I ask one other question? Again, it may not be for you to answer, maybe for principals. I know it's getting colder, right? And so at some point we might want to shut some or all of the windows just for comfort. These numbers are based on airflow with windows closed. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a specific request, specifically negotiated in the MOA. The language says you have to test it with the windows closed. And really, that's what NETB would have done anyway, because having the windows open changes everything. So they want to know what's your safety level when you have to be just relying on the fresh air intake from the unit itself. So that's the way they would measure it. And that was specifically what we asked them to do. So those numbers are, if you open the windows, you're better. You're already better. Even if you open the doors to your room so that you have access to the fresh air circulating through the hallway, which is being serviced by the rooftop units, you're better. So it's not an exact number. It's kind of a baseline to go off of. You just want to make sure your baseline, I don't want to call it the worst case scenario, but the most conservative scenario.
That's what
if you're in good shape, then anything you do on top of that just puts you in better shape.
So that makes sense to me. And I wonder if the principals are talking with their teachers about the ability, or who has the authority to say we can shut a window, we can shut multiple windows. I think we'll have good weather this next week, but it's gotten cold a couple mornings and winter's coming. So I wonder how those decisions will be made, maybe on a room by room basis, or.
Well, we've had a discussion about this, Brad, at the leadership table. The principals have already sent memos to their staff indicating that during colder spells, they certainly can shut their windows. If they're still concerned, they can crack one of the windows where they're teaching, but there's certainly no need to keep windows wide open when it's cold out.
Thank you. My reading of this. Go ahead.
We've also, and Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about this, ordered HEPA filters, which creates a far greater CFM per classroom as well for the winter season. I'm not sure when they're coming in, but hopefully they'll be in within the next month. So we've done everything we can to, I'm going to use the word, create the gold standard in our schools. If you remember back to the first study we had, the HVAC provider said we were within the top 10% within the state before we had these studies done.
And you're raising a good point, Brad. I mean, I think it's important for everyone to understand that the reason that we've gone through these efforts and we've spent the money, which is not an insignificant amount of money, but it was the right thing to do, is that we need to be confident, and we absolutely should be confident now, because we have hard data showing that our systems are functioning to the level, beyond the level that would typically be required, and but are definitely at the level that people are asking for given these circumstances. The windows should be closed. When it's appropriate to close the windows and it's necessary to close the windows should be closed. Because to think that you're going to be better off is true as long as you're not freezing to death, or I don't want to say freeze to death, as long as you're not creating another level of discomfort, a different level of discomfort. There is no reason for the windows to be open when these systems are functioning at the high level that we've determined with hard data that they are. And Superintendent Clenchey's correct. Our goal is to put a HEPA filter in every room. We've just ordered them. There's a lot of people that are trying to do the same thing. We're confident that we're going to get them by the time they're truly necessary, but that's going to put us way, way over the top in terms of air quality, and is even probably better than having the windows open in the first place.
Can you explain what getting HEPA filter means to me, as if I didn't know what that actually meant?
Yeah, it's a standalone device. You plug it in, it runs, it has an air filter in it, it circulates air. but the air filtering system on it is significant. It's kind of a big deal to have them in every room. We'll talk more about it when we're more confident that we actually have them on the loading dock and are ready to pass through the building. But, again, I hope that the message, that we've put out there and the effort that we've made for the third time now should really help people understand that we're doing what we need to do. Our buildings are safe. We're very fortunate in Littleton that our school buildings are in the shape they're in. Our systems are in the right kind of shape. We've maintained them. Our custodial staff and building maintenance staff, our energy conservation effort, which has been going on since I've been involved, has been a big part of that because we've upgraded all our control systems so that they can be run centrally by computer for the most part. Not every unit is like that, but for the vast majority of them, they are. And we run them the way they need to be run so that they're energy efficient, but they're also doing, and we can see if one's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's a readout on a computer. We don't have to go through and check it. We're getting, notified real time. Hey, one of these units has a problem. You got to go down the hall and check on it. So we're in really good shape. We're very fortunate. And we're going to be able to take advantage of it and be in a better spot than maybe other districts otherwise would be. So.
Yeah, Mike, and that's a good segue. I just want to remind everybody that our contractor is E&E Systems, and they're not just in and out. They're constantly in our buildings 3-4 times a week, checking on things, making sure things are running correctly, going up on the roofs, checking everything. So it's not just they came in once and they're done. They're in constantly with us, monitoring the situation.
Yeah, I appreciate, Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
I appreciate Steve saying that because I just had a conversation with Fernando Fernandez today, who's a remarkable head custodian who's been on the rooftop doing incredible work at great risk to himself, actually in very windy weather in the last week. He told me a captivating story that I'll spare the audience of today about how he was up there trying to do work on the univents and things like that just to make sure everything's running smoothly. And I just want to give him a huge shout out and thank you. And as well as to Bill Maher, the facilities manager. The team of custodians and maintenance crew that we have is doing remarkable work, doing their best to ensure safety. And just to echo what your sentiments around the evaluations we've had of the HVAC system, I'd like to get that out to the faculty to reassure them because there's been a couple of questions about that. But I really appreciate your comments tonight. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments on that? Justin?
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to add that I had touched base with Brad Lang, who's a Littleton resident who typically jumps in during this HVA conversation. He's since I'm not an HVAC PhD, I had him look at the report, and he reported back. I think he's actually on the call, but he reported back that things look great. It's a wonderful report, lots of good information, systems functioning properly. If we were to switch from hybrid to fully in person, some of the air exchanges might be a little low, but he thought maybe we could rectify that with increasing some of the fan speed for the air exchange. So you heard it from Brad through me.
Yeah, and again, Justin, the fact that we're going to put HEPA filters in each classroom adds to that level of security. And the HEPA filters that we purchased, the normal standard is 0.003 micron filter. Filters down to the 0.003 micron. They say that's safe. We purchase units that are going to filter down to the 0.001 micron unit, so an even higher standard. And we're bought units that are a little oversized for the classrooms, so it actually will move and clean the air at a faster rate than a smaller unit. I just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And just, if I may, Chairman, just a quick shout out again to Steve and the whole team. They've done extraordinary work under a difficult time, in a very difficult time, trying to figure out what to do exactly. And we're all adjusting, making, trying to be as flexible as possible. So thank you again, Steve, for all your work on this. And I would just say that, in regards to the windows, just a quick message to parents who are concerned about cold. We got a lucky week ahead of us with in mid-November with really mild temperatures, so spring-like temperatures. So we're good for the week ahead. But after that, we have to be careful in terms of how wide we open the windows. And so we have addressed that with the faculty, and I will be following up. And I followed up individually. I know Jason has sent a message out to his teachers at the middle school, and perhaps other principals have, but I'll send a message out this week. Thank you.
All right. All right. Okay. Next on the agenda is the public health metrics. Unfortunately, the state moved the goalpost again, at least for 1 week, and we don't have complete numbers available to us. They won't be available to us until tomorrow. We will get them and get our analysis up on the website the way we have been doing week over week. But a couple things. According to Katrina Hagberg, who is helping us with that, she said that the numbers they reviewed at the Board of Health meeting this week indicated that we are still in the red. That'll certainly be confirmed when we see the numbers, or we'll confirm that when we see the numbers directly from the state. That'll be the second week in a row that we're in the red. So that's something to be concerned about. Obviously, the trend in Massachusetts in general is not good. It's going definitely in the wrong direction. Littleton seems to be going right along with that. We're not quite sure where we fit in relative to the communities around us because we don't have that data, but when we get it, we'll take a look at it. The other thing that we should mention is that the state has shifted some of their guidelines, not necessarily specific to schools, but in general. The governor is requiring that everyone wear a mask out in public from 5 years and old and up. There is no discretion, no determinations. You just wear the mask if you're out in public. And then the other thing that the governor talked about was the distancing guidelines. Sorry, not the distancing guidelines, the gathering guidelines and things. So people should take a look at that and understand what that means. Actually, what I really specifically want to talk about is a stay-at-home advisory. So they're requesting that people be home in their homes from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Effective tomorrow in order to try to minimize social gatherings in an effort to try to flatten this curve that we're on right now, which is definitely not where we want to be, especially as we enter into the holiday season. So everybody should take that under advisement. Our next topic, moving on from that, actually, before we do that, Lynn Snow, do you want to talk about, I think there was an opportunity for school districts to petition to be part of a pilot program for a testing program?
Sure. So there's a program that is being offered in partnership with the Department of Ed and the Department of Public Health to provide school districts with Binax Now COVID-19 rapid testing potential. So it is a test that's performed as a nasal swab. It doesn't require instrumentation. Through a CLIA certificate would be able to be administered within the school setting by health professionals. So it's just a program that we're looking into right now.
Okay. I know that the COVID advisory task force that has been formed by the Board of Health it was looking at that and talking about it last night. I believe they are going to be at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday to talk about that further. Not about this particular program, but their own attitude and the work that they've done and the research that they've done relative to testing. So I plan on being at that Board of Selectmen meeting to listen to that, and then we can think about how that fits into correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, we're petitioning to be part of this. We don't know that we will be. Certain districts will get picked and some will get left on the sideline for the time being, correct?
So that's correct. So it is just at the infancy stages. So we received a memo from DESE giving us an overview of the program and indicating that if we wanted to express interest in participating, we filled out a non-binding survey, which provided them with some of our data. They are looking for districts that are providing in-person instruction. And I believe that there was probably a fair amount of interest from other districts in the Commonwealth. So they will be kind of vetting all those surveys and determining how many districts are able to participate or are eligible to participate. And so that's just where we're at right now. We've just been soliciting some input and feedback.
All right, so we'll stay tuned and see how that unfolds.
Mhm.
Dorothy, I think I do see one person with their hand up.
Yes, we do. Brad's Galaxy. State your name, your street, and your question, please. Please unmute, Brad.
Yeah, I think I hit it by accident. I don't have a comment.
Okay. All right, no problem, Brad. All right, next on the agenda, we wanted to talk about a possible idea relative to how we want to conduct ourselves, or the school district, through the Thanksgiving break. As we enter into this presentation and discussion, I would like to emphasize very, very much that this is something that we are entertaining. No decisions have been made. As a matter of fact, this is the first time that the school committee as a whole is discussing this. So we're going to talk about it tonight and see what we think. There'll definitely be an opportunity for public input both tonight and anytime prior to us implementing anything, if that's what we choose to do. So I would just ask that everyone keep in mind that no decisions have been made. This is just a discussion and a evaluation of an idea. But having said that, if we could bring the slides up for this. So the idea here is that, sorry, I'm just going to try to minimize myself here. Prior to the Thanksgiving break, the idea would be that the district will ask all families of hybrid on-site learners to complete and submit an online or paper form attesting to the following: that during the break, individuals residing in the household will avoid travel to locations other than low-risk states. And there is a definition for low-risk states provided by the state. And that also during the break, individuals residing in the household will avoid participating in any social gatherings to violate the mass guidelines regarding such gatherings. And again, there's specific guidance on that available from the state. And if a family declines to certify that or elects not to complete or submit the form, the idea that would be that the students in that family would not be permitted to participate as in-person learners either for 14 calendar days after school resumes at the end of the break, or until they provide proof of a negative test result for COVID-19 for those students. The test would have to be administered on or after 3 calendar days have passed following the resumption of school at the end of the break. And until then, those students would be participating remotely. We can go to the next slide. So again, if you the idea would be that failure in completing and submitting the form prior to Thanksgiving break, or failure to attest on the form that you're limiting travel, or failing to attest that your family is going to adhere to guidelines, means that students in those families would be required to be remote learners for either of those 2 weeks until December 14th, which would be 2 weeks after we come back from break, or providing results of a negative COVID test that was administered no earlier than December 3rd, which would be 3 days after. To the next slide. The idea is that 2 weeks of remote learning is a reasonable time frame to determine if anyone in the student's family contracted the virus through the behaviors over the break, or a COVID test administered no earlier than December 3rd allows 3 days after the break for the potential virus to incubate and show up positive on a test if someone did unfortunately contract the virus during the break. So that's really it. That's the idea. At this point, I would like to ask the school committee to see what their thoughts are and also get some input from the administration relative to what they think about the administration of this type of documentation. It would require the families to either, I would assume it would be online at best, but we should provide the opportunity for people to do it via hard copy. So I want to get some input from them, but before we do that, let's start with the school committee members.
you want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
It's right in line with what I was thinking. Kind of makes sense. I mean, just out of necessity, having to attend these meetings and listening to Katrina speak a couple times, I know that my personal behaviors have changed. The behaviors of my family have changed. We've followed her advice, and we're masking up even among, within our own cohort of our neighborhood, for example. So I think the idea here is just letting the community know that a real effort needs to be maintained here, and we're serious about it. You've heard some other towns where they've had gatherings, and they've had to unfortunately switch to remote or ask certain groups of students to switch to remote. So there are consequences, and I think just kind of getting out in front of this and letting folks know that if we want to try to keep the students in school, we want to try to keep in-person learning a possibility, we're going to have to take all possible safety precautions. It almost borderlines on too much governing or government or too much authority, but I don't think you can be too safe. I like the idea, and I'm kind of thinking it through as to what are the negative consequences of pushing this through or asking families to do so. And I'm kind of coming up blank. So if folks have something negative about it, I'd be all ears to kind of think that through. But that's what I've got to say.
Yep, Brad.
Yeah, I think I'm with Justin on this. We had a big, long conversation, an English conversation about all this in a couple weeks ago, and we heard two real messages. Follow the science. As there's no data to suggest that we have to go to full remote, then we shouldn't until the data is there. We also heard from the town. I think I said 30-something people called in that night, and again, hundreds of emails saying, trust us, trust us. The trust but verify seems to be an appropriate approach. I think that will give us, and I hope our teachers and staff, greater confidence that this is, in fact, a safe thing to do. And that also, as Justin mentioned, reminds us that we're all accountable for our actions, and that we are, as a district and as a town, moving forward with a plan that I'm convinced should be safe based on everything we've heard about how the buildings and our health protocols are working, but it only works as long as the families do. So let's hold each other accountable. Filling out an online survey is not a great burden. We know the rules now. They've changed recently. And if you choose to go outside these guidelines, then you may have to wait. Your kid may have to wait 3 days to take a test to make sure that they can re-enter our building safely. I think that's fair. I think it's a decent compromise.
Hey, Matt?
Yeah, I just concur with Justin and Brad. I think that it's important that people, put the priorities of the town before themselves. I know it might be an inconvenience if you go out traveling, that you might have to take a test, or you might have to hold your kid out of school for a few days, but we're counting on you to do that, because the goal is we want to keep our kids in school. We want to keep the in-person learning going. And we've seen what's happened in other communities where they've had to go remote, and we don't want to have to do that. So we're trusting everyone to do the right thing.
And again, Mike, I'll return to a point I think you made a couple weeks ago, is that in some ways Thanksgiving's going to be a test run for our other extensive breaks coming up. After the winter holidays, after, good gosh, February and April vacation, if we're still dealing with this. We need to know that we can do this safely. And part of that is by raising our hand or signing a form and being willing to commit to the common good. I think this is appropriate.
Okay. Dr. Clench, you have thoughts about what it would mean to do this? And are you guys confident that this is something you guys could administer on our behalf?
Yes, and first of all, if we all continue to pull together, we're going to be able to keep our schools open. So having our families indicate that they're adhering to those guidelines is going to help us be successful. In terms of tabulation of forms, etc., Mike, you and I had talked about having these forms handed in prior to the actual Thanksgiving break so we can spend the necessary time to get things in order. All I would ask is that it's pretty difficult for people to show up first day back in classes with a form and have us process those forms. So we would have a pretty hard deadline there. And if people are unable to get them in, that's fine. But they're going to have to go remote until we can process those forms if they don't hand them in via the deadline.
So that's a good point, and I think we have a fairly strong consensus that we think this is worth pursuing. This is the first time we have talked about it, and I feel like we owe the community an opportunity to think about it a little bit and see if they want to weigh in on it. But I think that as we're envisioning this, and based on the comments that you made, Dr. Clenchey, I think that we need to work on a calendar so that we know we can put it out up there so people have access to it and they have enough time to respond to it prior to the break. Like 2 days is probably not going to be enough. Like doing it the Monday of the Thanksgiving break and asking them to have it in by Wednesday, I don't think is fair to anyone. Maybe the week before, that gives them 10 days to get it done, might be more appropriate. I think we were planning on not meeting next week. So the opportunity for public input on this beyond tonight would go by the board. If we want to put it out, let me look at the calendar real quick. If we want to put it out there, so the week of the 23rd, right. If we wanted to put it out there on the 16th, we are planning on meeting on the 19th. So I guess the question is for ourselves is, do we want to direct the administration to do this tonight? Do we want to have them come up with a calendar and a timeline and an actual form that we can look at and maybe have a quick meeting next week on the 19th? I'm sorry, on the 12th, and then have it prepped and ready to go for the 16th. What is school committee members' thoughts on that?
I'm happy to meet the 12th. If we wanted to wait to the 19th, I've forgotten why we were going to take 1 week off. If we want to wait for the 19th, we could maybe direct or ask the administration to have the survey ready to go. And after we had public input and took a vote, provided that we end up supporting this, then maybe they could have it ready to press send Thursday night or Friday morning, which would still give a week. I mean, it gets us into Thanksgiving week, but by that point, everybody's Thanksgiving plan should be finalized. I'll defer to the administration if that timeline's too tight. I'm happy to meet next week. I'm not doing anything. Ever.
I personally would prefer probably to meet, even if it's briefly, just to finalize this on the 12th. And then open it up on the 16th. I think that would be better for the administration and better for the community. I was the one who didn't want to meet on the 12th. I won't be in Littleton, but given the way we're doing business, I don't have to be. I might not be right now. You guys wouldn't really know, except this does look like my dining room. So I can be available at 7 o'clock on next Thursday night. That's not a problem. It'll be from a little bit farther away, but I should have an internet connection, so I don't have a problem being available. Justin and Matt, what do you guys think?
I was going to wash my hair that day, but I can change my plans.
I'm okay. I mean, if we have consensus, I'm just not sure what we're going to accomplish on the. I feel like we've really stressed community input on a lot of the stuff that we've done. I don't think this is going to engender a significant amount of pushback, but I don't want to be the one who makes that assumption and be wrong after all the work we've done to make sure that we're being transparent and giving people time to think about it. And I don't think it's going to cost us too much on the 12th to have a quick meeting, even if it's really literally only to do this. So we're going to have the survey questions, wording available for that meeting. Yeah. We'll just run through it, ask for community feedback.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think, the more we have community buy-in for this, and people don't feel like something's been sprung on them, I think is the better. That said, we previewed this 2 weeks ago when we were kicking around what could we do if we weren't going to go full remote after Thanksgiving. In fact, this in many ways reflects there are ideas that came from the community about doing this. People were pledging they will follow these guidelines, and some even suggested, ask us and we'll certify it. So I think this shouldn't be controversial, but I've been wrong about that before. So I'm happy to meet on the 12th. It'd also be nice to hear from Timbaland on this too.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. So, all right. Well, I think that's a consensus. So Dr. Clenchey, you and I can talk about this as we get ready for next week, but I think we should proceed in coming up with something and making sure that you guys are comfortable that you're going to be able to administer it and keep track of it. It'll also give us some time to continue to educate the community about what our expectations are around this, and just also around what we're hoping is good behavior and good decision making that gives us the highest probability that we're going to come back to school on that Monday and stay in with our in-person hybrid model, through the end of this year into the holiday break. That's our goal, and like you said, Brad, that's what I think. I think we've learned a lot in these 7-8 weeks, and now we're going to get another education because it's going to be something that we haven't really dealt with since we opened school. So, keep our fingers crossed. But if we keep educating ourselves and holding ourselves as a community accountable in these types of efforts, it's going to give us our best chance to come out of this as well as we hope. So. All right, we're cruising right along. We are at the second point in the meeting for input from interested citizens on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak before the school committee?
I don't see any hands as of yet.
Okay, all right, we'll keep an eye on them. Going into subcommittee reports, Timbaland's not here for the PMBC report, but I will say that we did have a meeting with the Massachusetts School Building Authority today. It was Kelly, Steve, and I, along with Michelle and Joe Layden, the assistant town administrator, to talk about with the MSBA about moving forward with the what do we call it, Steve? An interest? Statement of interest. Right. We submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA before all this started happening, that we wanted to see if we could get funding from them, partial reimbursement for either a renovation or a rebuild of Shaker Lane. It's a very long, protracted process, but submitting that SOI is the first step. It kind of went on hiatus because so many things did after the pandemic broke, but they reached out to us and are reaching out to all other school districts that had submitted SOIs to just make sure, are you guys still looking forward to moving on this? What's your situation? If things changed at all? We assured them that we were very interested in moving forward, that we felt that we were ready to continue the process from a needs perspective and from a community interest perspective. They said that that's good and that they will be in contact with us. That is their intent to start moving the process forward on all these SOIs that they have to evaluate. Again, it's a very protracted process. There is a long way to go, but at least we have now restarted the process. So it was a good meeting. We're glad to have it, and there'll be more to talk about as we get farther on down the road with that. Is there anything from the budget subcommittee?
Only that we had planned our next meeting for next week when we weren't going to have a school committee meeting. So we'll just be, we'll be double header that day. So that's fine.
I don't feel sorry for you. Happens all the time.
I already did a double header today.
Yeah. All right. How about policy subcommittee?
Nothing for policy subcommittee, but I would like to just remind people there's going to be a CPAC meeting on November 10th. And I think information went out to parents through principals' emails. And we'll use social media and other ways to remind people of this. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think I've hit everything on the agenda. Is there any other business that we need to discuss? All right. I see no hands raised for public input, so I will take this opportunity to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. I'll do a roll call vote. Brad,
Brad Austin, yes.
Justin,
Justin McCarthy, yes.
Matt,
Matt Hunt, yes.
and Mike Fontella votes yes as well. Thank you to LCTV, Judy and Dave, Dorothy and Bettina for helping out. And we'll see everybody next week. Thank you.
Have a good night.